You are welcome. Oh, Kwan.
Okay. Instagram is going live too.
All right. I'll use this one for the instrumental. Real talk, fresh talk, whatever talk it is. Shit. Which one? Hi, welcome to Fresh Talk. My name is Owigho. Feels good to be here. What we do in Fresh Talk basically is we dissect newspaper headlines, breaking news as they drop. We'll try as much as possible to keep you updated, even as we, try to be your number one source of information right here in the FCT and beyond. My name is Owigho, by the way, and I'm your host. This is Owigho TV. Before we continue, today is one of those landmark historic days that we get to witness. Sometimes once in 4 years, once in 8 years, or maybe depending on what the economic realities eventually turn out to be. Today is President Donald Trump's inauguration. And guess what? A lot has already been happening. There is a mass deportation that is slated to kickstart on Tuesday, tomorrow, and it will be starting with Chicago. I mean, that's where the entire exercise would begin from. So, a 21-man panel has been set up by Donald Trump, still asking for, volunteers so that they can kickstart this massive deportation from the United States. He said it's going to be the biggest that the U.S. has ever seen. All right, that's happening in the United States. But let's come back here to Nigeria. What exactly is going on here? Ide Diesel, a tanker laden with petrol yesterday, had an accident in Niger State, and about 80 bodies were already buried as at yesterday in a mass burial. Right, and the casualty was said to have risen to about 86 as at yesterday evening. Right, and then we also heard not so long ago, I think it was in December or thereabout, there was another tanker accident somewhere around Kebbi State. And the narrative is that we have had a history of tanker explosions, tanker accidents, and all of that. How can we deal with issues like this? I've talked about the issue of, carrying 33,000 liters of highly inflammable substance from the southern part of Nigeria all the way to the north. Imagine the amount of heat that tanker will produce. The friction between the tire and the road alone is enough heat. But then, what do I know? Let's start with Punch newspaper this morning. Today is the 20th of January, 2025. Police tighten security as violence rises. Talking about Edo Guba and the tribunal that has started. Says police tighten security as violence rises in Edo State. And then NLC also is faulting fresh petrol hike says federal government is insensitive. NLC faults fresh petrol price hike, says federal government is insensitive. I'm going to take that story real quick. It says that the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has frowned on the recent hike in the pump price of premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly called petrol, describing it as the highest and height of insensitivity against the masses. Senior NLC officials disclosed this in separate interviews with correspondents on Sunday, as oil marketers refuted being blamed for the recent hike in PMS prices nationwide. Similarly, the Dangote Petroleum Company refinery also said that the rise in petrol price was not from the $20 billion Lekki-based plant, but due to an increase in the cost of crude oil, the major component for refined petroleum products. Recall that on Friday, the pump prices of petrol rose to between 1,050 naira and 1,150 per litre, following the hike in the cost of the commodity by the Dangote Petroleum Refinery and various depot owners. Dealers confirmed that PMS price will continue to rise since the major component in the fuel production, crude oil, has been on an upward swing lately. So what you're saying is that this one actually doesn't have anything to do with them. It's not as a result of the Lekki-based plant or any other refinery within Nigeria. This solely has to do with the fact that crude oil in itself, right, has risen. And that is the primary product where we get PMS from and other byproducts of crude oil when or after it is being refined. But in that hike, right, how much is Brent crude as it stands? And then WTI crude as well. How much would you say it is? Brent crude is expected to trade about $76.23 a barrel by the end of 2025 first quarter. But as it stands now, crude oil sells for $79.28 per barrel. So if that is what applies, what exactly are we gonna do about it? Like, who will take the responsibility for it? Is this where we should have seen the subsidy in the first place? Can we subsidize the main or the byproduct in itself? Or we just keep it flying like that? So these are actually questions that we'll be asking and hoping that we can answer or provide answers to, right, as we continue on the program this morning. If you are, you can drop a message, just let us know. We'd do well to take him or read them. WTI, that's US West Texas International, US West Texas Intermediate rather. That's also a pricing index for crude oil, and it's sold last 13 minutes ago at $77.91. So 1,150 naira per liter price of petrol right here in Nigeria. What you make of it? Is it too much? Is it too many? Remember that it said there just might be an upward review until the price hits 1,500 naira a liter. Can we actually afford it? Or we're just going round in circles? The Deputy President of Nigeria Labour Congress, Political Commission Prof. Professor Theophilus Ndukuba, argued that in a snare climb, representatives of workers, the organized private sector, and students would have been called to a roundtable to deliberate on the course of action and analysis of the consequences before the decision will be taken. He said the pump price hike will not only affect foodstuff and fare, there is the problem of inflation, the value of naira to contend with. Instead, what we are seeing is a situation we call Tinubunomics. It is something that has not been tested before. He actually went ahead to say. So, asking that, you have work representatives, you have student unions come to a meeting or come to a roundtable and deliberate on how to manage on these issues before going out to increase the pump price of petrol. Wouldn't that be asking for too much? Looking at the fact that the current cost of the price hike is not anything that has to do with production or doesn't have anything to do with the fact that there's subsidy or not. Doesn't have to do with production. Also doesn't have to do with refining. Basically, the price of crude oil in the global market went up. And remember that crude oil is being priced in dollar, right? Yep, that's international bench price for crude. It's been priced in dollars. By the end of the day, we still fall back to having to buy the other finished products, including PMS, which is the most sought after in naira. So if you look at the naira against the dollar, naira against the dollar, dollar against the naira, however you want to put it, and then look at the rising cost of production. Remember, the President Tinubu gave an executive order that crude oil should no longer be sold in foreign currencies. Rather, anyone who wants to patronize Nigeria's crude oil market should bring their money in and then get naira before buying. And people and experts have said this would go a very long way in reducing the burden or the weight that is on the dollars or the naira, as the case may be. What exactly do you also make of it? Let's continue. We'll see how many that we can trash before we get a go. This one basically is talking about the fact that quite a number of people have not taken what they are supposed to, where they are supposed to in national interest or personal interest, right? So it's also stated that Europe is on the edge as Trump takes office as US president today. That Europe is on the edge as Trump takes office as US president today. What are some of those dynamics about Donald Trump's administration that are making it look like, he's going to stand out? Besides just standing out, it's going to really make a lot of change or bring about a lot of change. Is it change in the interest of other people? I think time is what will only tell us. As president-elect, Donald Trump takes office today, January 20th. His brand of diplomacy is ready, sending shockwaves around the world, especially in Europe, where it is putting the countries in that region on edge. The inauguration marks the official transfer of presidential power from the Joe Biden administration to Trump, who has vowed to implement wide-ranging decisions by his first day in office. This year's ceremonies planned by the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies will feature the procession to the Capitol, Vice President swearing in, President swearing in, inaugural address, honorary doctorate, and departure of the ongoing President and Vice President, signing ceremony, inaugural launching and review of military troops. Scheduled to begin around 11:30 a.m. ET, the proceedings, which were initially going to take place on the west front of the U.S. Capitol, has been moved indoors to the Capitol round because of cold temperatures expected in Washington, D.C. today. So this is one of the issues coming out. But what exactly be making the Europeans be on the edge that Donald Trump is coming into office? I'll definitely bring you more insights on this particular story later on today. You definitely want to make it a date, right? I definitely keep you updated as well. Moving on to other headlines. This one here says, let's check Premium Times out. Premium Times here says, reigning in Nigeria's rising cybercrime. We heard over the weekend. It was all over the internet over the weekend about the anti-graft agency official who was shot dead during an operation in Anambra State. And this has generated widespread controversy around social media. And some people have said, was it actually a legitimate operation or was it not? Even though the anti-graft agency in itself, talking about the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has come out to say that they were on legitimate duty and that the police command in the state was also very much aware of that operation that same night. On the other hand, people have said that the suspect, talking about the person who pulled the trigger, is one who has a licensed gun. But the question still remains That if you have a licensed gun, at what point are you allowed or permitted to use a licensed gun? Because it's one thing to have a licensed gun, and it's another to know when to use it, how to use it, and on who to use it. So he's also the suspect is already in police custody, and then waiting, to be arraigned in court. And let's see how things will eventually unfold. Some people think that if he has a very good lawyer or a strong lawyer, he might be able to get away with it. But we've also seen, people like human rights lawyer Deji Adeyanju come out to say that you can bag yourself as much as 5 years in prison while you're still trying to defend, the whole self-defense claims. That why you're trying to put up self-defense, right? You don't do 5 years already. So, do you think there should be a lot more enlightenment about how to use, either Dane guns or whatever kind of ammunition, when to use it? You have a license, doesn't mean you should go around killing people, right? Exactly. But when or where is there a limit? Where is there a line as to when these weapons should be used or should not be used? I think a lot of people need to know all these things as well. So when you're purchasing a gun, a licensed gun, you know that is what you're supposed to do with it, and this is what you're not supposed to do with it. You know that this is where you're supposed to go to, and this is where you're not supposed to. Right? That's exactly how these things are supposed to work. And if it is not working the way it is, then there should be an overhaul, like a complete overhaul of the system. But on the other hand, let it not just be another, driving controversy kind of conversation where the commission comes out and they've debunked every claim that it was an illegal operation. But should your officers be scaling through people's fence? Should the officers be raiding houses at night, instilling fear and terror in the people while they're going about their sting operation, whatever it is? That they are carrying out a legitimate operation now mean that they will not be entering people's house anyhow they like. You jump fence, jump gate, break door, bulldoze your way in. What does the law say about that? It's actually very important that we know, right? So, everybody needs to understand how these things work. So if someone comes to your house, probably you are able to ask from the other end, do you have a search warrant? The person says yes. And like, can I see it? And they show it to you. It's up to you now to open the door. Or not. And in this case, if you don't open the door after they've identified themselves to you and told you that they either have an arrest warrant or a search warrant, where you now did not allow the person and they break the house down. In that case, I don't think you want to hold the anti-graft agencies responsible. You know what I'm saying? I remember in the case of Rochas Okorocha, there was literally his house was under siege almost the entire day. But guess what? They had a warrant for all of that. And that's why they were able to break their way in somewhere, somehow, when they saw that he wasn't forthcoming. Like they literally broke their way in from the downstairs through the window, and then from the upstairs through the POP, and then went and got him upstairs, opened the door for him up, carry on, come out. So, just making reference to that, since we're talking about this. So, the EFCC needs to actually come out and do a lot more talking as regards this issue. Let it not just be one that will be swept under the carpet for no justifiable reason whatsoever, right? The EFCC needs to come out, clear this particular issue. Let this life of your officer that was lost not just go in vain. At least we can use this opportunity to right some wrongs, do you get, and then make some others a lot better. Because if at the end of the day, sting operation was carried, one officer died, another officer in critical condition. And this is one that's got the entire country talking. What do we do from here? Where do we go from here? Do you get it? The EFCC came out to even issue a statement detailing how their officer was killed. I'll just read it for a bit. It says the EFCC said in a statement on Sunday that Aminu Salisu, an assistant superintendent of the commission, was killed at Dr. J.O. Okunife Close, Ifite, Oka, Anambra State, during an operation to arrest some suspected internet fraudsters in the early hours of 17th January. The statement said one of the suspects, Joshua Ikechukwu, shot Mr. Salisu, who was at the place with other investigators. The operation was duly documented at the Anambra State Command Headquarters and Area Command of the Nigeria Police in line with operational protocols. The operation was initially smooth sailing with 37 suspected internet fraudsters already arrested and a two-story building housing Ikechukwu and other occupants of the house. However, Ikechukwu, who cited the investigators through a CCTV camera mounted at his doorpost and who also confessed citing them, declined to open his door for the investigators who politely demanded entrance to his apartment. Defying all the introduction and physical citing of the investigators, he resorted to firing shots and killed Salisu in the process and wounded another officer detailed to conduct a search in his apartment, the statement said. EFCC condemns any false narrative for the loss of one of its officers as assistant superintendent of the EFCC, Aminus Sahabi Sarihu, who was killed in cold blood while on legitimate duty on 17th January 2025 by a suspected internet fraudster, Joshua Chukwueze Ikechukwu. Additionally, the Commission views with great concern the irresponsible, callous, and inhumane, outrageous narratives being circulated on social media on the whys and wherefores of the fatal accident. It is heinous to reduce the death of a gallant officer who was carrying out patriotic and official duties to social media razzmatazz, he said. So, would you say they're reducing it? Because some people were like, yo, this has got to stop. But it doesn't in any way justify, taking the life of anybody, actually. Because if this were to have been done by the anti-graft agency, it would be greeted by the same kind of backlash that these ones are giving it now. If it was the anti-graft agency where they were the ones that shot somebody, right, and shot them dead, it will also receive the same backlash. Why? Because people will come out and say, yo, anti-graft agency, they've not profiled him, they've not even, they don't kill him. So, what do? To the anti-graft agency in itself, you need to put your house in order. You need to call your men to order, right? You really, really need to call your men to order. I know without being, without hesitating to go ahead and say, yes, it was a legitimate duty. Nobody is dragging that with you. It should actually be a legitimate duty. Because if it were not, then the integrity of the commission itself would be questioned. If that operation were not a legitimate duty, then the integrity of the EFCC will be questioned. Because how can you, as a commission, be awake? You are not unconscious, and your men are carrying out illegal operations. That's why I said it has to be legal. Like, it has to be a legitimate operation. There's no other way about it. It's just like saying the FBI or the CIA went on an illegal operation, and the FBI is now aware of it. So the narrative about whether or not it was a valid or a legitimate operation, I think we should even scratch that part out. Because nobody will carry out that kind of operation without security agencies being aware, including the Nigeria Police Force. But remember, it still doesn't give any warrant whatsoever for anybody to kill anybody. See that, right? Doesn't give anybody the right to kill another person. Because at the end of the day, if you kill by the sword, you die by the sword. If you kill by the gun, I think in this case, EFCC will have to prove what will happen on the other side. My name is Owigho. We'll do this every day, 7 a.m. on social media, Facebook, Owigho Okolo, Instagram, Owigho_off_Abuja. YouTube, Owigho TV. Yes. I was supposed to have a guest today and we'll be doing the analysis together, but somehow couldn't make it for the first edition, right? So tomorrow, come back again, probably or hopefully he's able to make it. Let's see how much justice we can do as we continue. Thank you so much. Don't forget, turn on post notification icon and let's continue to do this. God bless you and God bless Nigeria.